The Quran was being revealed slowly, and Muhammad would give a little bit of revelation, as was important to a certain context, and then he'd give a little bit more, and he'd give a little bit more, and all these different revelations were put into a book later. They were all collected into chapters later. So you can't necessarily read from one section to the next and expect it to all flow. There's a lot of jumping around. There's a lot of verses being tossed in the middle. There's actually many stories in the Quran, and only one of them actually has a beginning, a middle, and an ending. All the rest of them pick up in the middle, or they leave off before it's ended. So the Quran is very different.
So when Ibn Masud and Ubayd differed about how many chapters there were in the Quran, that's because human beings are doing the best they can to collect what they understand to be the Word of God and to recollect the teachings that were left by the Prophet Muhammad, on whom be peace. They were doing the best they can. These are the reports that came down to us. But the overwhelming majority of reports that came down to us from the early generation of Muslims convinces Muslims that the 114 chapters of the Quran that we have today is completely the Word of God, and only this is the Quranic text. So
the Quran and the Bible are not the same book, but a lot of times we come to them exegetically as if they were. Muslims and Christians will come to the Quran exegeting them as if they were their own book, or they'll come to the Bible exegeting it as if it was the Quran. This is a problem. The Quran was not written like the Bible. How was it written? Muhammad would receive a revelation, or so the Islamic sources say, about 5 verses at a time, generally speaking, according to the Hadith. He would relay to his scribes. The scribes would write them down, and that was one recitation. And later again, and later again, later again, and then at the end, and sometimes it'd be longer, at the end all of them were collected when he died. So it's very possible that one section of the Quran, one verse, has very little to do with the next verse, at least at face value. That's why you have the whole series of hadith called Asbab an-Nuzul, which I'm sure you're familiar with. The hadith that say, this is when this verse of the Quran came, this is what it means. This is when this verse of the Quran came, this is what it means. And so you need the hadith to exegete the Quran, because one verse does not necessarily relate to the next. Bible's not like that.